I'm happy to say that genetic testing has improved over the past several decades. Those of you who've heard me preach before may remember my perplexity at being told several decades ago by a company that specialized in tracing African American ancestry that I had no African ancestry that was detectable in my genes. They told me that I, in fact, was white. Now let me tell you, there is no blues like the blues you get from being white and having none of the privilege. When I asked you where to go to claim my white privilege, most of you weren't helpful. I did get a message from one enterprising UUCA member who guaranteed me the white people price on my next car purchase. And it worked. But I'm happy to say that the tracing of African ancestry has improved, even for someone like me who has a racial mosaic on both sides of my family. I now know definitively where my ancestors of color came from. Genetic testing confirmed that most of my ancestors lived in the vicinity of the Niger River, which matched exactly where my mother always told me. I don't know how you knew, Mom, but you were right. If we subtract out the German, Scottish, British, and Welsh part of my ancestry, there is still a full and fulsome part of my genetic code that originates in Africa. My people were mostly, though not exclusively, Yoruba and Bantu, living in parts of Africa that came to be Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, Togo, Mali, Cameroon, and Senegal. I am still a mosaic, but it is a mosaic of color. I have no white privilege to claim, but I can claim the privilege of being black, a privilege I treasure. In historical contexts, perhaps my desire to claim my African heritage is a reflection of my greater privilege as a black person living today. It might seem that the black abolitionists, Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth, whose words you heard earlier, had to struggle for something even more basic: the recognition that they respectively were a man and a woman. Both were saying in different ways that who I am is self-evident. But in neither case was that true. Black people of that era were not thought to be fully human. And so their claim of being fully gendered was subject to question. But lest we think that such fundamental questions are in the past, let us remember the challenge mere weeks ago of Michelle Obama's womanhood on the White House lawn. Yes, the question was uttered by a mixed martial artist with a possible concussion history. But the utterance still hurt and infuriated. It still harkened back to a 250-year-old racial trope. And it was still on the White House lawn. And make no mistake, it was not an insult directed only at one black woman. If you are a trans person struggling for recognition of who you know you really are, the insult was meant for you too. But is it actually surprising to have the ugly reality of racism, transphobia, and oppression emerge in a celebration of America's semi-quincentennial, a celebration of America's founding document? Granted, the Declaration of Independence is one of the most important documents ever written. It has inspired 120 other declarations of human rights around the world, including the founding documents of France, Liberia, South Africa, and most of the democratic states to emerge from the Soviet Union. Walter Isaacson, the Chilean university professor and and prolific historical biographer, calls this excerpt from the Declaration the greatest sentence ever written. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence is America's creedal statement. It's not America's Constitution. It is not a statement of law, policy, or procedure. It's a statement of the truth as understood within America's civil religion. It is fundamentally a moral and philosophical document. Isaacson goes on to explain that every word in this one sentence is steeped in moral philosophy. By beginning with we, Thomas Jefferson and his collaborators were asserting the right of collective will, the right of ordinary citizens to govern themselves rather than be subjected to the will of emperors, kings, or conquerors. We hold these truths to be sacred, Jefferson wrote, but Benjamin Franklin crossed out sacred and substituted self-evident. This was not just a matter of personal preference, Isaacson tells us. Franklin was giving a shout out to his friend, the Scottish philosopher, David Hume. Hume said there are two kinds of truth. The first was synthetic truth, the kind which requires you to go out into the world to confirm it through evidence. America's soccer team was doomed from the beginning. That's a synthetic truth. The second kind was analytic truth, the kind of truth that is self-evident. The speaker today is one handsome devil. That's analytic truth, self-evident, requiring no confirmation, but I appreciate it. The truth in the Declaration was analytic. It was self-evident. It required no confirmation to assert that all men are created equal, that they are endowed with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And here is where the trouble starts. Were they using men to mean mankind, or even better, humankind? The evidence suggests not. 41 of the 56 signers of the Declaration owned slaves. The Declaration did not apply to the enslaved, or to women, or to Native Americans, or even to men who were not property owners. It was a declaration of the rights of man, narrowly defined. And the final version left out these words Jefferson had written earlier. He, meaning King George, has waged cruel war against human nature itself, violating its most sacred rights of life and liberty in the persons of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery in another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in the transportation thither. Those words didn't make the final cut. But Jefferson, a slave owner, put those words in the Declaration condemning British enslavement of Africans while being waited upon by his enslaved valet, Robert Hemings. If the name Hemings sounds familiar, it's because he was the half-brother of Sally Hemings, believed to be Jefferson's mistress. Brilliant as Jefferson was, he lacked anything resembling a sense of irony. And here I have a confession to make. I make it with some hesitation because I don't want to offend those of you who feel differently than I do about America. I also don't want you to think my confession in any way represents the attitudes and opinions of most Black Americans. This is very much the confession of one lone Black man. Please remember that. I'm also conscious of what it means for me to make this confession so soon after the 250th anniversary of the Declaration. So let me apologize in advance for any unintended offense, and let me declare in advance the admiration and respect that I have for those of you who would willingly make even the ultimate sacrifice if called upon by America. The confession that I make is that I am not a patriotic American. I don't come from a patriotic family. No one in my family ever flew the American flag in their yard. Though I have forebears who lived through the Civil War, both World Wars, and the Korean War, no member of my family has ever served in any branch of the military. I was in high school during the Vietnam War. As I approached the age at which I was legally required to register for the draft, the only conversations my mother and I had about this was how to get a college deferment and whether the two of us should consider relocating to Canada. But don't get me wrong, I am grateful for my American citizenship. It was hard won by my ancestors to whom it was long denied. I recognize the value of my American citizenship in the larger world, and I have no intention or desire to let it go. But my relationship with America is built up not upon patriotic emotion. I'm not stirred by the national anthem. My heart doesn't swell at Purple Mountain's majesty or amber waves of grain. I did sign a national loyalty oath in college as a condition for the one and only loan that I took out to fund my education. But in doing so, I was fully aware that I was engaged in a transaction. I was taking an oath of loyalty, but only in return for a loan of money. I admit with some sense of shame that my fealty to nation is shallow and transactional. I'm not proud of that, but it is my truth. African Americans deal with our painful history in this country in different ways. Some of us ignore it. Some of us relegate it to the past, believing that enough has changed, that times will never be as bad again. Some of us establish a new identity based on our adjacency to whiteness. We take flight from our history, believing that our education, our professional success, our income, our ability to fit in, our ability to make white people feel comfortable will be enough to guarantee our safety. If we can be sufficiently adjacent to whiteness, then maybe racism and racist violence will never darken our door. We deal with our painful history in this country in different ways. Some of us find refuge in faith and hope. Faith in the lofty ideals upon which the country was founded, and hope that they will someday come true. But even if history suggests otherwise, but I've never been good at ignoring the realities of the past or the present. I've never been good at looking away or pretending that things were and are different than they really are. It is not enough for me that things could be different if we only tried harder, believed more deeply, and hoped more sincerely. I'm not angry about the way America has dealt with Black people, Native people, people of color generally. I'm neither angry about the past nor the present. I don't carry a grudge. I can forgive. I'm just not good at forgetting. I also know my worth. I know the worth of Black people, brown people, people America too readily has cast aside in the 250 years since its founding. Given that history, I believe I'm justified in saying that America must earn my patriotism, but it is yet to do so. What I want is not a 250-year-old America still struggling to live up to its ideals. What I want is a new America with new ideals. Not America 250, but America 2.5. The Declaration of Independence, inspiring as it may have been, is still a declaration of the past. What I want is a declaration of the future. The Declaration and the revolution that followed it gave us America 1.0. An America independent of Great Britain, but one in which only white men voted. The Civil War gave us the start of an America 2.0. An America in which the right to vote and the power of enfranchisement gradually expanded to encompass more of the American population. An America that corrected many, though far from all, of its flaws. But now I believe it's a time for an America 2.5. Not 3.0. That would be radical. That would be risky. That might be too much of a leap for that young raindrop we heard about earlier. But America 2.5. Not so different from what it is, but different enough that it gets closer to what it should be. What would a declaration of America 2.5 look like? First of all, it wouldn't be a declaration of independence. It would be a declaration of interdependence. We no longer need to proclaim our independence from Britain. Rather, we need to declare our interdependence with each other and with the rest of the world. How would an America 2.5 act in the world? Well, research shows that the dismantling of foreign aid by DOGE has already caused 750,000 preventable deaths worldwide. The long-term death toll is projected to exceed 9 million within the next 4 years. And America 2.5 would act in the world by using its wealth and its power to save lives rather than to take them away. In America 2.5, you wouldn't achieve national elected office without having character. A character defined by modesty, composure, and integrity. Journalist Bret Stephens tells us, rather than bombast, intemperance, and corruption. After 1 year in office, Donald Trump's wealth has increased by $2 billion as a result of investments in enterprises that directly benefit from his administration's policies. And America 2.5 jails presidents for such naked corruption, rather than preemptively pardoning them. Rather than preemptively pardoning them for all crimes contemplated or committed. America 2.5 embraces a different kind of capitalism. And yes, I'm a capitalist. A capitalism in which wealth is created not just for shareholders, but for all stakeholders, not just for investors, but for entire communities that share a stake in the success of the economy. It is a capitalism that prioritizes long-term sustainability over short-term windfall, and environmental responsibility over environmental extraction. It is a capitalism that is sufficiently confident based on history that it's not afraid of socialism. A capitalism that recognizes the value of an AOC, a Bernie Sanders, and a Zoran Mamdani. It knows that capitalism is made better by embracing enough socialism to curb its baser instincts and its greedy extremes. We owe our social safety net to the activism and the advocacy of socialists. We know this kind of capitalism can work because it is the capitalism of Sweden, Denmark, Finland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, and one day, it's the capitalism of America 2.5. And America 2.5 exists in the world humbly. It does not kidnap or assassinate foreign leaders. It does not claim foreign lands or foreign resources. Its foreign policy goes beyond self-interest to consider global interest, the good of all, and not just the will of the rich and powerful. A foreign policy built not on what we are mighty enough to do, but rather on what it is right to do. Ask not what your country can do for you, President John F. Kennedy said famously in 1961. Rather, ask what you can do for your country. But I, a descendant of the enslaved, a descendant of those who were erased from the final version of America's Declaration, I want to propose on this semi-quincentennial an America 2.5 that will never demand or expect patriotism. That was America 250. America 2.5, each and every day, will commit itself to earning and being worthy of our patriotism. And though it is not here today, may we commit to one day making it so. Amen.